Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavadhi Tamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Puranana Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. So today we have to see Bhagavad Gita, Shrimad Bhagavad Gita, and second chapter, 27th verse, we will just touch upon. We concluded the class with that 27th verse. So now today we'll just touch upon it and then go ahead. Second verse, second chapter, 27th verse. Jatasya hi dhruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya ja tasmad apariharyerthe natvam shochitum arhasi. This is the shloka. And this shloka says, everyone who is born has to go. Who doesn't know it? It's a well-known phenomenon. And if you restate a well-known phenomenon, it is called anuvada. And without doing anuvada, you can't. Whereas the next half of the first line, the first half of the first line is anuvada. The second line, the second part of the first line is pratipadana, meaning it is the Shruti says, everyone who is born has to go. Now, after leaving the form, also you have to take another form. That you have to take another form, that called rebirth, re-embodiment, is stated by the Shruti. That is pratipadana. In that matter, the only pramanam is Shruti. Accept it or reject it, because logic also tells there is so much of disparity in the society. How can you explain this disparity? It cannot be an accident. Therefore, the disparity cannot be due to some future. The disparity can only be due to the past. It need not be past in this life, it can be past lives. This is one logic. Without accepting the rebirth, you can't explain away the disparities. And disparities are there in this world, whether you like it or not. Even if you have even if you change your political system, even if you try to, through your political system, even if you try to give the same thing to everybody, even then there will be disparity in their happiness. The same amount of money you may give, but you can't give the same amount of happiness. Happiness is determined by prarabdhas, lot of it. And also some people will be able to control the anger, some people may not be able to control the anger. This is a disparity. Any division is a disparity in the society. So you can't explain away the disparity unless you accept rebirth. Therefore, Punarjanma has to be accepted logically in order to explain away the disparities in the society. This is number one. Number two is, if a person can go to the deep sleep state and he can come back to the same form, if he can leave the thought of embodiment, if he can leave the thought of embodiment and resume it again, why can't he resume with another form? In fact, he doesn't die with the resolution of the thought. The thought may resolve, but not this self. The self is always eternal. Therefore, you can't explain away, in the light of the deep sleep state also, the Punarjanma has to be accepted. So, it's logical to accept Punarjanma. It is illogical to reject it. You can't take a stand against Punarjanma. If you take a stand against Punarjanma, independent of the past, you should be able to explain away the disparities. Despite having the same amount of money, The people's happiness is not the same. People's comfort is not the same. They can make themselves miserable also. They can be comfortably unhappy also. You can only talk about you can only give the same thing to all the same amount of wealth you can give, same amount of houses you may give, same amount of dress you may give, same amount of food you may give, but at the same time, their happiness is not the same. This is a very big logic, please. You can't explain away the disparities in the society. You can't explain away the disparities in the society without accepting Punarjan. Therefore, here the Shruti, even though Shruti alone is the Pramanam, but it is logical to accept. There is a logic. Common sense says sense. So if you go by common sense, by your discretion, if you go by your discretion, your common sense, it tells that there should be Punarjanma. Having transcended the thought, having transcended the world, having transcended the form, I come back. If I can resume the same form, I can resume also another form. Why not? It means I am not dead in the deep sleep state. Transcendence does not mean death. And the death cannot be deeper than deep sleep. There cannot be variety in the freedom from the thought. Freedom from the thought cannot be varied. Freedom from the thought is freedom from the thought. Timelessness doesn't have freedom from time. It doesn't have variety. You can't say the timelessness of the deep sleep state and the timelessness of the death are variegated. You can't say, because time can be varied. We see the variety inside a time, but not in the freedom from time. When you transcend the time, you also transcend the variety. You transcend the variegatedness. And therefore, there is no gradation in the timelessness. This is a very important point. People have to understand. You have to think correctly. That is, you can have gradation in the world. You can't have gradation in the freedom from the world. You can't have gradation. You can have gradation in the enjoyments. You can have gradation in the desires. You can have gradations in the thoughts, in the feelings and emotions. In this world is full of gradation, whereas freedom from the world doesn't have gradation. Therefore, in the deep sleep state, you transcend. And if you come back, you assume the same form. If you ask me a question, why does one assume the same form when after the deep sleep state? Why should he come back? I say he has to exhaust the prarabdha that is there in this life. There is a certain amount of prarabdha to be exhausted through this form. And therefore he comes back to this form. Until the error is corrected, man has to continue to be in the embodiment. Until the truth is understood. The error cannot be, the time is not a healer of error. And therefore, if a person can come back after the deep sleep state, the self also can come back after the death. Death is not distinct from deep sleep state, please. I would like to say, because in transcendence there is no difference. When you have thought, there is a gradation. Thinking is graded. Freedom has no gradation. Bondage can have gradation. One is less bound, more bound, like this, bondage. Sense of bondage can be graded. But the sense of freedom, the nature of the self has no gradation. It is ekarasaha. Ekarasaha means it is the same. It is the same. It can never have any gradation. Trees can have gradation. Objects can have gradation. Emotions can have gradation. Wealth can have gradation. Comfort can have gradation. Even relative happiness can have gradation. Joys can be graded. Everything can be graded. But freedom from the thought cannot be graded. Freedom from thought. Please listen. Freedom from thought cannot be graded. And therefore, absolute cannot have any gradation, please. The relative can be graded. The absolute cannot have gradation. The deep sleep state is absolute. It is a presence. When the wave is there, just see how man is hoodwinked. You can understand from me how man can be hoodwinked. When the wave subsides, we immediately call it is absence of wave. It is not absence of wave. It is not presence of wave. It is only presence of water. When the pot breaks, immediately we say it is absence. We think in terms of the absence. When the pot is there, we say the pot is. When the pot breaks, we say the pot is not. But we never think in terms of the presence of the clay. That is what Vedanta says. Don't get obsessed with the presence of pot and the absence of pot. In the presence of the pot, actually, it is clay. In the absence of the pot also, what you call absence of pot is nothing but presence of clay. In the same manner, you see the waking world, thought is there, you say it is the presence of thought. When thought is not there, you say it is absence of thought. It's not that. When the thought is there, it is your presence. When the thought is not there, it is your presence, please. Thus, think about your presence. Your presence is never absent, with the thought or without the thought. In the waking and in the dream and in the deep sleep state, only your presence is there. Think in terms of your presence. Don't think in terms of the presence of the thought or the absence of the thought. Don't really determine, don't call deep sleep state as absence of thought. Call the deep sleep state as presence of you. Because the absence of thought can also be thought of only in the realm of thinking, please. Whereas in the deep sleep state, there is neither perception, nor thinking, nor memory. And therefore, it is only presence of your being. And therefore, here, the Shruti says, Jatasya dhruvam mrityuhu. The one who is born shall go. That is a well-known phenomenon. But mrityur dhruvam janma mritasya cha. And the dead has to come back. There is no death. There is only becoming unmanifest state. He just, sinks into himself. His thinking it sinks into himself, as it were. And they like when you sleep, you don't go anywhere. Your thinking sinks into your being. And the being alone stays. Like when the wave goes away, it doesn't walk away. It just sinks into the water, its own source. The thinking also sinks into its own source, as it were. That is how it becomes unmanifest. That is how we are experiencing the deep sleep state. In the deep sleep state, the thinking sinks into the very source. And therefore, here Bhagavan says, don't think of death as something death. It is not a death. People call it death, but otherwise, according to Shastra, it is nothing but the presence of the truth, the unmanifest state of the individuality, the unmanifest state of the thinking, the unmanifest state of the thought that I am the form. And the thought that I am the form can become unmanifest, and the thought that I am the form can also become manifest. And when it becomes manifest, it is called a waking state. If you come back into the same waking state, then you say it's a waking up. And if you take another form, then we call it as rebirth. But really, it is a manifestation of the unmanifest thought of embodiment. Embodiment, that I am the form, is also a thought, please. It's not a fact. It's not your nature. That I am the form is a thought. It is aham vritti. Dehohamiti vritti. There can only be aham vritti is always in the form of dehoham vritti. I am the deha, this vritti. And this vritti is something that is called adhyasa. It can become manifest, it can become unmanifest, and having become manifest, it can again become unmanifest, and again it can become manifest. And throughout this life, it becomes manifest and unmanifest. In sleep, it becomes unmanifest, As you wake up, it becomes manifest. When it becomes manifest, that is called the waking state. And when it becomes unmanifest, it is called the sleep state. It's not that in sleep it becomes unmanifest. Don't say. Don't say it becomes manifest in the waking night. The very manifestation of that aham vritti is a waking state. And the unmanifest state of that very aham vritti is called the sleep state, the unmanifest state. And therefore, the sleep, that truth doesn't become manifest or unmanifest. But the identification of the truth with the form, the thought of identity, the thought of judgment that I am the form, that can become manifest or unmanifest. That can be reborn. The self remaining the same. The self does not become no manifest, no unmanifest, no. The thinking becomes no manifest and no unmanifest. The consciousness remains. It illumines the manifest state. It also illumines the unmanifest state. Even though we say it is unmanifest, it illumines the unmanifest state. Whenever you think of the unmanifest, it is known. That means illumination. To know is called illumination. Yes, what else? To be aware is called illumination. Therefore, the truth illumines everything. There is nothing that cannot be illumined by the truth, please. The truth illumines everything. Therefore, here it Bhagavan says, Tasmad apariharyarthe cha natvam shochitum arhasi. And therefore, what is born has to go. And the one who is gone has to come back. This is apariha. It is an inevitable phenomenon. It is a choiceless phenomenon. You have no control over it. And therefore, natvam shochitum arhasi. You are not supposed to worry over the inevitable, over which you have no choice. You have to put up with it. You have to accept what is choiceless. What is there in your choice, you can change it. But what is not in your hand, you can't change it, please. This is very important to understand. What is in your hand and what is not in your hand. What is not in your hand, you can't change it at all. What is in your hand is, you can know the truth that is in your hands. But supposing you live on without thinking, then when you die, when you will come back, the truth will have to assume another form. The self has to assume another form, because you can't explain away the present. You can't explain away the disparity of the present without accepting the past. It is all not. This disparity cannot be attributed only to the likes and dislikes. Because ultimately, the likes and dislikes also have to be ascribed to the law of karma. And the law of karma, without accepting the law of karma, you cannot clinch the issue, please. Even the law of karma is in the avidya. Even the law of karma is only in the creation, in the avidya. And the truth, this avidya cannot contaminate the truth. The ignorance cannot stifle the truth. The illumined may be of any quality, it cannot contaminate the illumina. Like whether the sunlight illumines the Ganges water or it is a gutter water, it illumines both waters, the good water and the bad water. But neither the good enhances the glory of the sunlight, nor the gutter water takes away the glory of the sunlight. They don't really, they don't affect the nature. They don't qualify the nature. Please. The sun is not qualified by Ganga water. The sun is not qualified by gutter water. In the same manner, the awareness is not qualified by the state of vidya. The awareness is not qualified by the self-error. The awareness is not qualified by the disparity, because it is all in the realm of perception. The realm of perception means the realm of action, mental action. This is the realm of avidya. And what is there in the realm of avidya cannot taint your actuality. You may have the sorrow, but your sorrow cannot qualify your actuality. You may be emotional, but your emotions cannot qualify. Qualify means they won't become adjectives of your actuality. Your actuality remains the same. Thus, there is a difference between a realm of thinking, realm of perception, and a realm of being, please, realm of your actuality. And all that the Vedanta is teaching is learn, try to know your actuality. Your actuality is that you are Brahman. You are the all comprehensive being. You are all comprehensive being. Your existence is self existent. Your existence, you have self existence. You don't have dependent existence. But as long as you take yourself to be, as long as you don't know your actuality, you always think I depend upon food, I depend upon water, I depend upon the objects. You always say, I depend upon the breath, etc. But the Shruti says, apranaha, amanaha, shubhraha. It is said the truth is, the self is something is independent of the breath, independent of the thought, and it is clean. And therefore, that independence is called cleanliness. It is again. Aprana, amanaha, shubhraha, it is said. Therefore, here Bhagavan says the inevitables don't accept. You have to simply accept the choiceless. It's inevitable place. You can't stop it. You can't change the flow. What is the flow? If a person is born, he has to go. And if he has gone in ignorance, he will come back again. In avidya, if he dies, in avidya, he will be reborn. Until he understands, until he corrects his self-ignorance and self-error, until he understands the actuality about his being. The actuality, that is called Swarupam. Swarupam means the actuality about your being. The Jiva happens to be in actuality Brahman. Like the wave is in actuality water. You may think it is a wave. Pot is in actuality is a clay. The table is in actuality is wood. In the same manner, the mind, the individual, a given individual is actuality. In actuality, a non-given truth. It is not the given truth. There are not many truths. It is the truth. It is unlimited. Once you transcend the thought, you are not a given individual, please. The given individuality becomes unmanifest, but you stand as only a conscious being, the absolute conscious being. In deep sleep state, you are not a given individual. You are a non-given being, presence, the truth. And therefore, don't worry about the choiceless, please. Accept, understand it. Life is to be understood. Death has to be understood. Death is not to be feared. Death is not to be detested. Let the death come on its own. You don't have to hurry for it. You don't have to worry about it. You just think about the truth. What is death? Is it annihilation? Or is it a state of unmanifest presence of an individual? Whereas the truth is, neither it becomes manifest nor it becomes unmanifest. It is always manifest, it is always available to be present. It is always present. The wave may become manifest and it may become unmanifestly present as a wave, but as water it is always there. It is accommodative of the wave and it is accommodative of the absence of the wave. Therefore, try to understand the life and death. Don't unnecessarily worry. Worry is illogical, please. Any worry is illogical. It is only when you think, when you want to be comfortable, you don't want to have any problem. You don't have to have any. You don't want to have any challenges. You want to be just comfortable. A sluggish person. When you don't want to face any challenges, then really you start worrying more. Say, ready, you should be always prepared to face the challenges because embodiment brings a lot of challenges. When you are living in life, a life of embodiment, there are many challenges. The sheer survival, for sheer survival, you have to face many challenges. And therefore, if you are prepared to face the challenges, then there is no worry, please. If I am prepared to face tomorrow, today I am relaxed. If I am not prepared to face tomorrow, then I am not relaxed today also. And therefore, the worry is always the worry is an illogical. What is illogical? I am not prepared to face the challenges. And the challenges are inevitable in life. Wherever there is embodiment, if I have to depend upon the objects, then there are challenges. And I have to face the challenges. The readiness to face the challenges is the answer to your day-to-day worry, please. The readiness to face challenges. When you are not ready to face the challenges, then you worry more. And therefore, this verse is complete. Instead of worrying, understand, look at life, look at your presence. Who is the seer through the eyes? Who is the hearer through the ears? Who is the thinker through the mind? Who is this? This conscious being. And what is its actuality? Consciousness by nature is unlimited. That nature you have to recognize yourself. This is my actuality. My actuality is not flesh. My actuality is not bone. My actuality is, it is all the vikar, it is all the modification of the food that I take. I have the form, but I am not the form. Just as you have the house, all right, but you are not the house. You can't equate yourself with the house, please. Here there is equation, and this equation has to be broken. I am the form. This equation has to be broken. And therefore, instead of worrying in life, be reflective, please. The best alternative to worry is reflectiveness. Reflectiveness means use your reasoning to understand what is your actuality is totally in contrast to your view that what you are. Your view that I am the form is in contrast to your actuality. It is absolute contrast. It's not just an ordinary contrast. It's like a contrast between a limited thing and the unlimited. The wave as a given wave, and as water it is the whole ocean. What a contrast, my God. To be the whole ocean, that is, as water it is the whole ocean. As a form, it is only limited. See the contrast. That is the wonderment that we are going to see in the coming verses. Now, in the next verse said, Avyaktadini bhutani vyaktamadhyani bharata avyakta nidhananyeva tatraka paridevana. It is said, even as an individual, you have no reason to worry. As Brahman, you have no reason to worry. As in actuality, as your actuality, nothing can affect it. The actuality is something that is always present. But even as an individual, as Mr. Arjuna, as an individual, as a jiva, you are always there, either as manifest or as unmanifest. You cannot be absent for good. You can only be absent for a while, and again you become manifest. Like when you go to sleep, as an individual you become unmanifest, and again you become manifest. Avyakta adeni bhutani. All individuals begin with avyakta, the unmanifest state. Vyakta madhyani bharata, and they become manifest in the middle. Vyakta madhyani bharata means they become manifest in the middle. Avyakta nidhananyeva, and ultimately they become again unmanifest. It's like a person who is born is manifest. The whole day he is manifest, and in the night he becomes unmanifest. In the morning again becomes manifest. Rather, when he becomes unmanifest, that is the night. When he becomes unmanifest, that is the day. Not by day he becomes manifest. When he becomes manifest, that is called the day, please. This is also a very big rahasya. We always think a day is something. I wake up, By day I wake up, by night I sleep. It's not true. When you become unmanifest, that is the night. When you become manifest, that is the day. A person who sleeps in the daytime, for him it is night, yes. It is only unmanifest, he becomes unmanifest. And the one who is awake, for him it is day. The one in the during the very manifest, the very manifest state is called the day. The very unmanifest state is called the night. Thus, just as in everyday life, jiva becomes manifest and unmanifest, in the same manner, ultimately in life also, in life, after life is over, when the body becomes unfit to live in, man leaves the form and then takes another form. Therefore, tatra ka paridevana says. When this is choiceless, what is what is the worry? Paridevana means worry. Tatra ka paridevana. Tatra in this matter, ka means what? Paridevana. Why is paridevana? Why chinta? Why worry? Just accept it. But the error cannot be corrected by time, please. Just because, like illiteracy throughout life, even though you are illiterate you live 100 years, and if you are illiterate, even 100 years cannot handle that illiteracy, please, unless you go to school and educate yourself. In the same manner, if simple illiteracy cannot be healed by time, how can the self-ignorance be healed by time? Time is not a healer here. I have to look at myself. I have to take interest in looking at myself. I'm used to thinking about the objects. All these objects are creations. They are perceptions. They are not different from person. But the unobjectifiable oneself, the subject, is something that has to be looked at properly. Who is this subject? Me. And and that contrast must be seen. Discerning between the unobjectifiable and the objectifiable form is what is called vichara. Seeing the discerning between the unobjectifiable being and the objectifiable form is what is called vichara. And that vichara has to be done rather than worrying. This verse also is also over. The next verse we say, Ascharyavat pashyati kashchidenam, Ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanya, Ascharyavat manya shrunoti, Shrutvaapyenam vedana chaiva kashchit. This is the verse. Ascharyavat pashyati kashchidenam. Arjuna, you are not the only person who is in Bhranti. Everybody is in Bhranti. In fact, in this Bhranti, there is a thought that there are many jivas. There is a thought with many jivas. There is a perception of many jivas. In this perception of many jivas, every jiva is like you. It's the same truth, but then his thinking is different from your thinking. And everybody thinks of the objects. Every jiva thinks of the forms. Every jiva thinks about the objects. Everybody lives in memory of the objects. Everybody wants to become full through the objects. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam. Yes, Bhagavan also says, Mama vartma eva anuvartante manusha partha sarvasha. Meaning, everybody follows only my path. Their entire struggle is to reach fullness. But you can't reach fullness. You can't create fullness. You can't. The ocean cannot create another ocean. If the ocean is ignorant about itself, then it has to recognize its oceanic nature, please. Similarly, the sense of limitation is entertained by the unlimited. There is no limited. The consciousness is not limited, please. There is a thought of limitation. Limitation is not a fact. Limitation is a thought. Whereas the unlimitedness is a fact, is a conscious fact, is consciousness. It's not a thought. Consciousness is that which is independent of thought, is a fact. Is the truth place. The unlimitedness is a fact about us, whereas limitation is a thought. Limitation is a sense. Security, eternity is a fact. Non-eternity is a thought. Unobjectifiability is a fact. Trying to objectify oneself as the form is a thought. That is not the form. That is the formless being is a fact. But that I am a form is a thought. And therefore, samsara is, that he is free from dukkham is a fact. And therefore, dukkham is a thought. Entire life is a thought. Death is a thought. It's not a perception, please. Ununderstood, uncorrected perception, uncorrected view about the truth. Uncorrected view about the truth is life. Uncorrected view about the truth is death, please. It is an uncorrected view. It is not something, don't say man suffers for a purpose. There is no purpose of this life. There is only a reason. And to remove that reason, if you like the word purpose so much, then I say the purpose of life is to understand why does man struggle. To remove this ignorance, to correct the self-error is the only purpose of life. But otherwise, don't think in terms of purpose. Always understand that life has a reason. Struggle has a reason. Sorrow has a reason. That reason is self-ignorance and self-error. If you think more in terms of purpose, you will become deadlocked because there is no purpose. If you are unhappy, it has no purpose, please. If you are struggling, it has no purpose. Struggle has no purpose. The sorrow has no purpose. The sense of limitation has no purpose. Imprisonment, the sense of imprisonment has no purpose. It has a reason. If somebody is imprisoned, it has a reason behind. That reason is ignorance, self-ignorance and self-error is the reason. Thus, life has a reason. Be always correct in thinking. It has no purpose. Oh, I am born so that I can help others. So that's not the right thing. I am born because I am ignorant of my existence. I am ignorant of my actuality. And therefore, the reason is that. And I have to look at myself squarely. I have to look at myself correctly. How under that contrast between the consciousness and the thought that I am the form has to be seen. That contrast has to be seen. That contrast is absolute. Arjuna, you are not the only person in ignorance. Every jiva is in ignorance. And every jiva is like you. There is no difference between jiva and jiva. See, even though different people think differently, but fundamentally they all think the same. All individuals, including human beings, think the same. There is an equation with the form. This thought of embodiment is there, universal. It is a universal. Every individual has this thought of embodiment. What is the thought of embodiment? That I am the body. A human being has this thought of embodiment. An animal has the thought of embodiment. I find myself with this thought of embodiment. That's why it is called Swabhavikam. This is anadi error. It is the timeless error. It is not an error that is born on a given day. It is a timeless error. And this timeless error is not something that is not authored by you. You find yourself with it. Self, like the illiteracy, you find yourself with it. It's not something that it is authored by you. It is not created by anybody. Ignorance is not created. You find yourself ignorant of yourself. You find yourself self-embodied. If you find yourself with embodiment, you find yourself struggling. You find yourself angry. You find yourself unhappy. This goes on. And this has a reason. And the reason is ignorance about your actuality. Non-understanding of your actuality. Non-recognition of your actuality. And therefore, what should one do? Should only think about is actuality. What is my actuality? And therefore, even though people are different in thinking, their views may be different, but the fundamental view is the same place. The fundamental view is what? You like banana, I don't like banana. Our likes and dislikes are also different. But the fundamental view is that I am the form. Everybody is self-ignorant and having self-error, and 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 they may have differences in their likes and dislikes, but fundamental view is the same. In suffering, it is the same. Everybody has the same kind of suffering. They all suffer. That they suffer is a fact. That they suffer. And the reason for the suffering is only sense of ignorance, sense non-understanding of its actuality. Non-understanding of its actuality, otherwise called avidya. Avidya is that reason place. Avidya is, and therefore to correct the avidya through vidya should be the purpose. It should be life has no purpose. I have to invent a purpose. I have to think of a purpose. What is the purpose? To correct the reason for suffering, to correct the reason for insecurity, to correct the reason. Like education about myself, my own actuality, is the purpose of life. To understand my actuality is the purpose. Non-understanding of actuality is the reason for the entire saga of samsara. The saga of samsara, the saga of struggle, the saga of jealousies, the saga of anger, the saga of violence. All these are taking place only because of the lack of understanding about one's actuality. And therefore, to understand one's actuality is the purpose. I should only think of that as the purpose. Not to become famous is the purpose. That is not the purpose. That is all really, that is a part of the struggle, please. A part of the struggle cannot be freedom from the struggle. A part of the struggle cannot be knowing the actuality. It's not synonymous with knowing the actuality. It is knowing the actuality of your being that solves every problem. That is synonymous with freedom from struggle. And therefore, to become famous is a part of the struggle, not freedom from the struggle. And to become a popular person is a part of the struggle, please, not freedom from the struggle. And therefore, don't undertake any part of the struggle. Don't look upon any part of the struggle as your goal. In fact, freedom from the struggle should be the goal. The goal is not something in time. It is recognizing yourself. You don't have to move to reach the goal of life. The goal of life is you don't have to reach anywhere. You don't have to create anything. You don't have to change anything. You don't have to purify anything. Just as being like this. Like the wave doesn't have to do any religious rituals. The wave has to understand that I am only the sea water. The whole sea am I. A given form am I not. I am the whole water. As water, I am the entire sea. In this manner, the wave has to understand. In the same manner, here also Jiva has to understand that much, the actuality of his being, the actual nature of his being he has to understand. And therefore, Arjuna, you don't have to think only you are in problem. In fact, like you, there, everyone, every individual has the same problem. The problem, even though they think differently, but fundamentally they all think the same way. Even a scientist or an illiterate person, they think fundamental thinking is the same. I am the form. I am the form. The unlimited is equated with the limited form. The unlimited is, and the contrast is not seen. And so showing the contrast between the unlimited conscious being and the limited form is what is called Vedanta. Vedanta only points out the unlimitedness of consciousness. It is evident. It only points out the evident place. It does not create the unevident. It doesn't talk about the unevident. It only talks about the evident. And therefore, says Arjuna, You are not the only person. There are many people. Every individual is the same. Even though Indians are different from Chinese and Chinese are different from Americans, we are all different. Our lifestyle is different. Our thinking is different. Our views are different. But the fundamental view is the same. This is what you need to understand. Fundamental view of all living beings is the same. Even amoeba, there is no difference between amoeba and you, because you stand as a form and the amoeba also stands as a form. And this equation with the form is universal. And that is that equation that has to be corrected. And that correction of that equation is what is called vidya. And therefore, Arjuna, this is the truth. And the more of it we'll see later. I think I am tired. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Whatever it will see later. Thank you. Look after yourself well and be reflective. Even if we have only 45 minutes class, it is not nothing great. Even if you can absorb even one thought, that is enough. It is not just doing many Upanishads that matter. Correct thinking is what matters. The right thinking. The right thinking is what solves the problem. It is not a lot of thinking. It is right thinking. In right thinking, there is no thinking. It is only being, please. To be, stillness is only the being. In right thinking, there is only seeing the contrast between your existence and your thought. And therefore, please don't worry, even if the class is for 45 minutes, it doesn't matter. Thank you very much. Look after yourself. Om.